which is very similar in how you would tie it, you can tie this fly. You don't have to do a lot. I'm just going to take some of this crystal web. You can see how flowy it is. And I'm going to start with white on the bottom. Take a little chunk of that and sort of cut it at an angle here. Then I'm going to hold it right up there and cut through it a couple times with this mono thread. And then sort of roll the material around so it's on both sides. And then as I work up, I'm going to tie on a little bit of a more of a gray color. It's still sort of white, but it's got gray, a little bit of dun. It's called the color dun. And I'm going to put that right on top. And then move it around so it's equal on both sides. The other thing I like about this material, it's very translucent, and it also has some sparkle to it. The next color I'm going to put in there is olive. So as we get to the top of the minnow, we're going darker. So here's some olive color. Tie that right on top there. The other nice thing about this mono thread is it really grips this fiber well. It just really clamps it down. It doesn't rotate, you know, like deer hair or bucktail. So the last color I'm going to put in there is a chartreuse. That's just because of what Lefty Cray said about chartreuse. If it ain't chartreuse, don't use it, or something like that. So I'm going to just put a little bit of that right on top. And I've got a little tool here that we can just sort of run through those fibers, and it sort of blends them together. If you want to, you can add a lateral scale on there, which you would just put on by holding it on the side, bringing it around. There you've got a little lateral scale. You can do that or not do that. The last thing I'm going to put on there is a little bit of dark green crystal flash right on top. It's just going to give a little bit of contrast, so it looks like that. Okay, now I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to change to a 210 denier chartreuse thread, so it'll cover over this and just adds a little bit of UV to it. That chartreuse color does have UV, so you can see how that sticks out there. So I'm going to just change over to this other thread, so just make it a little bit neater, and you'll see it there after we get the eyes on. You still following me there? Okay, so now you can put eyes on there. there's different kinds of eyes. There's your, like your 3D eyes. I'm not going to put those on because that's a little bit more difficult. I was going to put on a flat eye, but I don't see them here. So I'll just go ahead and use one of these 3D eyes. This is a 6mm, and first I got to whip finish it. And one of the things I like to do to sort of flatten out that head so that the eye will stick on there is take a pair of hemostats and just press on it. And that's going to collapse and make a little bit of a flatter base for those eyes to sit on. Okay, and I'll take my 3D eye. These are a little bit harder to work with. They don't stick quite as well as the flat eyes. So hopefully it won't fall off. Okay, and I like to start with the thin glue because it'll penetrate in and around those eyes. And hopefully when I drop this on there, I won't knock them off. Just put a tiny little drop on there. Whoa. Well, looks like it didn't get that one. Let me add a little more here and see if I can get that one to stick. This is probably the hardest part of the fly is getting your eyes on there, right? I think we got that one. Now I'm going to switch over and use some of the thicker. And then with my left hand, I'm going to sort of stroke those fibers so they're all lined up. And one nice thing about this fly that I really like is if you put enough glue on there and you work it back towards the bend, it'll never foul on you. It just doesn't get caught around the bend of the hook. Can you still see that? No. Okay, there we go. So I'll put some glue on the underside here. I like to glue completely around the eyes. I don't like I like those eyes to be totally buried in the glue, because if they're not, they'll come off. That's a little frustrating. I think a lot of your store-bought flies, they don't put enough glue on them. It doesn't create a hard enough head. And okay, well, that's pretty much it except for the trimming. And we'll just sort of cut it at an angle here. However you like it to look. So you can do a lot of different things with it. Here's a little glass minnow that is almost clear. And that I'm going to be trying out under some of the dock lights. And then I've got one that I'm sending to a friend in Colorado who fishes the Colorado River a lot. He's a guide up there. And this is a little rainbow trout. And on this one, I did add quite a bit of weight, some 035 lead up towards the head so that it'll sink, because he's going to be fishing this primarily going down the river in a drift boat. You want that fly to drop real quick. So there's a lot of different things you can do with this crystal web. It's just a fun fabric. You know, it's a fun material to work with. Comes in lots of different colors.
Where do you get it?
Yeah.
You can search on the internet for crystal web. I also have a little Etsy shop. You can go to Etsy to Jim Cannon, or I'm sorry, to Salty Quill. And I've got some there. It's sort of limited quantity, but I've caught a lot of bluegills, even catfish. I've got a picture here, if I can pull it up.
You go on the catfish.
I love catfish.
They do fun.
And I've caught, 2 days ago, I caught a nice tarpon. I've caught 3 or 4 tarpon, and Gabe's caught a tarpon, my grandson. And that's the one, JT took that one. But it's a good fly. I've got a lot of confidence in it. And, you know, we'll just see what happens. And, you know, the other thing, it's easy to tie. And the material actually is pretty inexpensive. It's only $2 for, instead of, you know, some of this other stuff now is getting up there $8, $9. So anyway.
And one more thing, what is that lateral?
That's it's called lateral scale. And it's just a real thick Flashaboo type material. It's called lateral scale.
Jim, could you put that, Jim, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you put that recipe into next month's newsletter?
Yeah, you bet. All the materials, I've already got it typed up, so I'll just send that to JT and he can put it in.
I think that'd be great.
Okay.
Because I think that would be a way that you can induce other people to watch.
Yeah. The other thing I like, the last thing, and then I'll shut up, is I like that fly because it's durable. Now this one here caught that, it's about a 15 to 20 pound tarpon last week. And it looks a little chewed up, but it's still fishable. So, you know, I like flies that are durable, fairly easy to tie, and cheap.
When you put the lead on the 035 lead, does the hook come up, or does the hook down when it fishes?
Well, I just wrap it around the shank, so you would still fish it, you know, like this.
Yeah.
It's not going to turn over in the water like a clouser, because you're wrapping it around the shank and just putting the lead on the first half of the hook. Now on the little teeny bluegill flies, if you weight those, I'll just put the lead, instead of wrapping it around, I'll just put the lead, you know, on the underside, and it'll help sink it just a little bit faster.
So as a testimonial, I've been fishing with Jim Cannon for baby tarpon. That's what I've been hunting this whole summer. And he's caught the last 2. I had 1 hit on a gurgler, but that thing is effective. And I'm curious what Captain Jamie thinks, because one of it was down near your waters of that fly.
Well, I have a couple questions. First, I'd like to know the length of the fly. It's hard when he's holding it up. It looks to be quite large, but I think it's deceiving because of our screen, and I'm sitting right next to the screen. So, JT, your head looks extremely large, but that might be just normal. Anyways, yeah, it's obviously it's going to be a very durable fly. Yeah, when he first tied it, I thought the thing looked like it was like 6.5 inches long, but And I'm looking at
Yeah.
the size of his vise. I'm thinking, okay, this is probably more like 3 inches or
It's
3.5
about
inches.
3.5 inches right here as it is, but you know, you can always cut it down. I'd say it's about 3 times the length of the shank. Would be right about there.
Yeah.
But,
And
you know,
I was also concerned that with the fouling and the way you, because I know a 600 is or that hook is that Tiemblo hook is a short shank, and I was
Yeah.
going to say, ooh, is this going to foul? Because it looked, well, before you trimmed it, it even looked extra long. But now I can see what you're doing and you're building, but you didn't build any epoxy beyond the bend of the hook, but you said that still is enough to support a non-fouling fly.
Yeah, and you know, I haven't fished with it all that much, but I have not had any fouling, and I've just been putting the glue till about, you know, right there. So it
Okay.
comes to right there. But you could build it out farther if you have more material, you know, and a longer fly. You could build it out a little bit.
And again, I think the synthetic is probably less likely to foul than a natural like a fox or a marabou or something too. So
Yeah.
that probably helps it also.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
is there a name for that material at Walmart you were talking about?
It's in the fabric department,
Okay,
and I don't know the name of it, but there's three different colors. There's sort of a pink, there's a blue, and then there's a clear, which is, you know, sort of a crystal, what I was using today.
mhm.
So yeah, just you can see the sheen on it. It's just like millions of tiny flashaboos.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
You won't, once you start looking at the bolt, go where the bolts of the material are, and it'll stand out pretty good.
Okay,
Thanks,
Okay.
Jim.
Well, thanks a bunch.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
And we'll get that in the newsletter, right, JT?
I took a few pictures too of the Zoom meeting, which I think is important to get in the newsletter.
Good.
I think 22 people. I don't know why some of these people are blanked out on my screen, like Tony.
Well,
Hirsch.
they just don't have the video going. It's not a big deal.
Are they on? Or are they not?
Yeah, they're on.
Oh. All right. So anyway, I think that's a pretty decent turnout for a start.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was just writing to my buddies club in Oregon. They canceled all their meetings and I sent them some pictures and I said, you guys should do this. This is pretty cool.
Well,
As long as they've got an Ethan.
I'm not for hire. Anyway, I think most of y'all know Captain Jamie Allen. I'm going to welcome Jamie to the room here in just a second. He's a certified FFI casting instructor. He fishes primarily out of the Boca Grande area. For I think his targeted quarry is mostly the tarpon, but he does snook and redfish and trout and whatever else he can come across down there. Anything to keep the rods bent. He's a proud member of the Bonefish Tarpon Trust, and so he's a great advocate for our resources down there. Captain Jamie, I understand that you are a true Floridian, meaning you're not from Florida.
That's correct. I am
How'd you
not
get here?
from. That's a long. I grew up in Orvis land. I'm a little Vermont boy,
Okay.
and I was fly fishing came to me. I was at my stepdad took me to some little pond lake thing up in the mountains, and they just stocked it, and so we ran down there with our spin rods and caught some fish right off the bat. And some gentleman came down and walked out to a point, and the fish were rising, and we weren't catching nothing. And I watched him just get fish after fish after fish, and I was not a shy little boy. I kind of was shy, but I walked over and finally he caught my he figured out that I was watching him, and he called me over, and I asked, what were you using and all that kind of stuff, and can I put that on my rod? And he goes, no, well, it's different. And then that's when I said, all right, I got to figure out how to do what this guy does. And so, yeah, my first outfit was from a hardware store, and it was about $20, and I bought a 12-pack of flies from Kmart for 99 cents, and they didn't last very long, but started catching fish. And another gentleman from a local fly shop kind of gave me a break, and I said, I got this many dollars. He goes, well, that's enough for these 6 flies that I want you to use, and that's how I got started. So
Awesome.
from there, I've been all across the country and up and down, and came here about 20 years ago from Colorado, and now I'm here.
Were you guiding in Colorado?
No, I owned my background is electrical engineering.
Okay.
I'm kind of the oddball fly fishing guide, I suppose. So no, I ran a telecommunication company back there, and sold that when I left. So
Cool.
came here when my boys were just getting ready to start school.
When did you hook into your first tarpon?
Right before I came down here, I was supposed to fish with I called around, and there was a gentleman from Colorado that said, oh, I know somebody. And I called him, and he put me in touch with another person. And it happened to be in August,
Yeah.
late season tarpon. And it was also his birthday. And he called me back a couple days before my trip and said, well, I'm still in the Keys doing lobstering, but I'm going to have you fish with this other guy, Tommy Locke, which I didn't know who that was, but turns out he's probably, in my opinion, probably one of the best tarpon fishermen in my area. And since you like to fly fish, you're going to go out with him. And I said, okay. I don't know who he is. And we went out, and he's a big old rascal, kind of soft-spoken gentleman. And we pulled up to an area and said, well, they ain't moving yet. And so we caught a redfish, first one. And he said, well, time to move. The tarpon are starting to show. Grab your big rod. And a little bit later, got my first tarpon, which happened to be just a smidge over 100. And I was tickled to death. And he said, well, you want to run out and catch a snook, which I'd never caught that. And, went out the outside, and Cape Costa was just slathered with them. And so he caught some snook, came across the pass, got completely soaked, pulled up to the dock, and my wife and kids were waiting for me. And she looked at me and she said, well, I'm going to guess you caught a tarpon today, because the only time I've ever seen you smile like that was when your children were born. And I said, yes, dear, I did.
So
And that's kind of how was my start down here.
That's incredible. So what's your ideal day on the water right now?
Oh, I love being on the water. There's lots of good days. I love to sight fish. I like fishing all year round, but the part of what I'm going to talk about tonight is the late season tarpon fishing. And for people that have not caught tarpon or are kind of new to catching tarpon, and I've said this for years and years, if you've never caught a tarpon on a fly, I come the last 2 weeks of July through August, and that's when your odds are really going to go up. And now it seems like it's extended a little bit, and we're getting them into September, October. There's a little picture on the clip you guys will see. JT came out and with some friends on a little, I guess we could call it a booze cruise. Sorry, JT. and I've seen him a little with better balance on a few days, but he was still able to. We stopped at a spot, and then we continued on south, and I was intended on heading to a little tidal creek, and the water was so clear, I noticed a couple fish that were tarpon in some of these sand holes, and I didn't think much because I just saw one, and then I saw two, and then I saw a group of 15 or 20, and I shut the motor down, and JT says, why are we stopping? I said, look behind the boat. And they were all kind of just slow rolling up, all pretty, and we turned around. Of course, we didn't have anything bigger than an 8-weight that day, and we got into them. And JT showed me one of his signature moves, because I have never had another angler do it. Oh, look at Ken giggling. He already knows where this is going. I have not had another angler be able to hook a fish, and I have had the front end of the rod come separated. But I have never, ever, except with JT, who did it 2 trips in a row, the second time with Ken, as he reached for the front half that first day while the tarpon is on his line, the back half of the rod, including the rail, fell off on the other side of the boat into the drink. Like, how did you do that? And then about a week or so later, Ken comes and goes, I can't believe he did this and that. And then we were in that little tidal creek, and Ken had just got a little tarpon, and he was doing that, and flip, the tip goes off, and then he did, and the back came off again. So you hold the record, sir.
You know, I believe, am I muted?
Nope.
Oh, we hear you.
I believe that rod had ferrule issues, and I sent it back because they were too loose or something.
Right.
In my defense, it was a defective rod, and the day that I went and saw all those babies with you, I had a defective brain. I was so hungover. That was one of my worst game days of fishing that I recall.
I'm going with the defective brain, not the defective rod.
It was a combination.
There was some defects. We'll say that.
Well, thank you for entertaining my questions there, Jamie. I'm going to show these 2 little quick videos
All righty, sir.
real quick. And there's our current leaderboard, everybody, for the month. Here we go.
Black and white.
It's wherever you see fish, throw. One of them's gonna see it sooner or later. Pick right up and throw. Oh, you got it.
Oh, no.
You can see the alcohol coming through his shirt.
Great shot right there. Okay. No. I think you got him up pretty tight. Let's go ahead and get some line on that reel. Let's get tension on it. Reel. Hold on.
That was a
That girl. She doesn't even know she has a hole in her pants. bit, midget. Just a big shiny bluegill. What's up, buddy? Good size for you. On it. There you go. You got it? Yep. There he goes. Jeez. Boy, he's a spunky little guy. There we go. All right. Morning, guys, or whatever time it is. It's morning here now, anyways. I don't think he's going to jump. We're out on the river again today, and it is absolutely beautiful this morning. Glassy, flat, calm, and we're tarpon fishing again, right? I mean, why not, right? I mean, I know you guys would be doing this if you were me too. Been on a pretty good bite, so I'm going to continue on with it. We're going to be throwing the good old.
Sorry about that, guys. I didn't stop the other video. There we go. There you go. Okay. Not far enough. There we go. Where, to the left? You guide me, right? Here? Oh. There. I can't. He's running toward me. I guess you were right. Should have stuck him again. All right, guys. Thank you, Jamie. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Jamie, if you want to tell us a little bit about this late season tarpon fishery.
Well, as you can see, there's a lot of fun stuff going on right now. A lot of those, that last little clip was with one of our Charlotte Harbor members. I saw him down in Pine Island Sound the other day, and he said, "Yeah, we need to go out. I want to fish up in your neck of the woods." And that water that we were fishing where he was hooking those tarpon that morning was probably, I don't know, 10 minutes from the boat ramp. There ain't nobody there. Those fish have been showing up in that area for several years now. They'll range from 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds up to about 30 pounds. No one pressures them. They're fun to catch. But we still got big fish here. Right at the beginning of August, I grabbed one of the biggest ones I've had my hands on in a while. It was, I could barely get my hands around its lower jaw. So it was in that 150 class. So yeah, we've still got big laid up fish. The Pine Island Sound is still very productive. The water is a little off color. So we're using a lot of either really, really bright or extremely dark flies. Sharp hooks, sometimes where you're going down to a 9 weights, even an 8 weight, but a 9 and a 10 is fine. But in some of the areas we're fishing, we're still using 11s and 12 weights. We've got big fish. Obviously, because of what's going on in our world right now, there's not a lot of boats out there, and which is nice for us because we feel safe. I feel comfortable being on the water with 1 or 2 anglers, and we get this water to ourselves. But this is how we've had this fishery now for a long time, numerous years, where this is a wonderful, wonderful time to have, especially people that have never caught a tarpon, to come down. I'm not going to say we catch a tarpon every day or hook one every day, but our odds are, there's a bug around my head. Our odds are much higher than normal. Considering how May was this year, I feel that we're getting connected to fish 75% of the time we're out.
So are you seeing the tarpon on the surface? Is that how you're locating it on?
This time of year, because of our rain, obviously we're getting a little bit of rain now and then, pretty much every day. So they're more like rollers.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing them. We're seeing them pop up. Most of these fish that I'm targeting right now are in 2.5 feet to 6 feet of water.
Okay.
We do have some bigger fish that are in a little deeper water, and we can still sight fish some of them. We still have some laid up fish that are mature fish that are above 75 pounds. Obviously, those ones are a little tougher. There's not as many of them, but for just connecting with nice fish and, like I say, 9 weight fish or even 10 weight fish, very, very plentiful. They seem to be anxious to eat because I don't think they're getting screwed with. Where I'm fishing, I'm seeing more, blue crab guy boats than fishing boats.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes for a nice combination. We can go out. We're doing a lot of like half day, 5 hour, maybe a 6 hour trip at the longest. We're not doing full days. It just gets too darn hot.
Yeah.
We're also not going out at like first light. My trips are starting at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Okay. JT, you had something?
I'd like to say that I've been out with Jamie. For some of you guys who haven't fished with him as a captain, I've been out 4 or 5 times. Other than the perfect day that I totally screwed up, he's a super nice guy and he's really entertaining. He doesn't yell at you if you screw up. I mean, he's very positive. I've been with some guides, not to mention names, Lenny Moffo, that will just like abuse you if you don't do well or you can't cast. They get all frustrated. So he's patient and he's got a lot of good stories as well. So it makes for a fun day, and hopefully you'll jump a few fish or whatever. I know Jim Cannon should probably fish with him because Jim saw some tarpon the other day that he said he was too scared to cast at. They were too big, which I thought was crazy.
My 9 weight would have just collapsed.
Nah.
I have told people don't throw at that one. That one's too big.
Yeah.
Takes the fun out of it, huh?
So how late in the year do you think you'd have good shots at tarpon?
Oh, this year our water is so warm. I feel that we're going to have fish easily through September, most likely through a good part of October. Last year we were catching fish after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I had some wonderful fishing with one of my regular guys that's not here right now because of what's going on. He's up in upstate New York. His son was here heading back to school on a Thanksgiving break, and we were catching tarpon on December 1st.
Okay.
I would say there's a really good chance that we could have something similar to that again this year.
And do your patterns change as it gets further on?
Yeah. we tend to have this time of year, we've got a lot of darker water. So we have to show, it's throwing things that the fish can see.
Yeah.
It's not so much that, oh, you got to have this one, or if it's not chartreuse, it's no use. It's these fish, there's no spawning going on right now. So any fish that's here is here for one reason. It's here to eat.
Okay.
And if it's a big fish, it's here relaxing and getting ready to make its migratory path. Probably if it's still here, it's going to go south. It's not going to go north. So we're trying to throw patterns that they can see. So we're doing some of the darker stuff. I could hold up some flies, but it's going to be hard to see it. But some dark things with some red. I'm either using like a really, really dark pattern, or I'm throwing things that are obnoxiously bright. Some of the guys from your club already know that I tie some weird bubblegum pink stuff. And that is, this year wasn't as strong as in the last few years, but still we caught fish on them. In that video, the video seemed to be a little bit clippy, so maybe we have to do something before we try one of those again. But that still works. It's a buttload of pinfish in the areas that we fish because there's a lot of grass. So sometimes that bright yellowy, chartreusey stuff that you can even put a little barring on it, but it's throwing things they can see. It's visual. I'm not worried about eyeballs and stuff this time of year. I want something that they can just find in the water. They're here to eat. And we can see them popping baits and jumping on stuff. And I basically just follow Joanne around, and wherever she goes, that's where I go.
Catch fish.
You gotta be up early to catch her, I guess.
No, I'm not getting up that early.
So why don't we open the floor up to any questions? Anybody have anything for Captain Jamie?
Hey, Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Are you still throwing your secret weapon every once in a while to some of those juvies, or do they not go after those?
Oh, yeah, they do.
They do? Okay. Okay. I didn't know if they were old enough to have that DNA, pattern of attacking those guys.
Well, they just like a lot of other people we know, they forget after a while. But I will tell you one thing. Since we're talking about tarpon, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see this very well. I'm going to try to hold it up close.
Raise it up a little.
This is my go-to tarpon hook now. It's a Varivas 2600V. Make sure that's right. Yep. 2600V. Is that visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you get that online or from some shop?
I'm not using any other hook. That's all I'm going to tell you. I am not using another hook for tarpon. This is the only one. You have to get them online. They're hard to find. They're kind of expensive. It's like $9 for a dozen. So they're super strong. They're crazy sharp.
Japanese?
Yep. There's and I don't remember the gentleman's name. He was this the guy that's got a whole ton of line class records from fly fishing. He's like some Dr. Augusto something or other, whatever his name is. He spends his time trying to set world records fly fishing because he can. He got with Varivas, Varivas, and designed this hook. And somebody showed it to me a few years ago, and I thought it looked pretty decent. So I went out and used them, and they worked pretty good. And we were fishing in a little basin in the late summer, and we couldn't see the fish real well, water soft color. The guy threw and missed it, and he goes, "Oh, make one over there." Line went tight. It acted weird. The hook literally penetrated the fish's scale into the fish's back behind his dorsal fin and held him for a couple of minutes before it finally pulled. And that's when I went, this hook went through the scale of a tarpon in his back where it's really thick. And that's when I said, all right, I'm gonna play with these hooks a little bit more. So they're kind of large if you order them by what you'd normally think tarpon standards are. It's kind of that 600 SP sort of shape, but different. But if you know a 600 SP, you know it's kind of a larger gap hook. They use them for like a lot of hair flies, crab flies, bigger flies. So I'm tying mine on a number 1 or a 1/0 and nothing bigger. And we just took, well, that last big fish we took at the end, right at the beginning of August, was a solid 150, and that was on a number 1. It's a strong hook. It's deadly sharp.
How long did that take you to land?
I had a young angler. It was not a nice fish. She took us into deeper water, drug us up current. Jonathan did a great job. I've been fishing with this young man for about 10 years now. He's early 40s. I didn't look at a watch, but it was in that 30-minute mark.
Did you chase it with the boat?
Yeah, I had to in the beginning. Yeah, she took off too much line. He had a big Silver King on 11 weight, and yeah, we had to chase her at the beginning. And once it got line back on, she was just didn't want to come in. She was button hooked between, which is what I call right in the top of the jaw, in the very front. You can't turn her head. She jumps once or twice in the beginning, and then she just pulls on you. He's a strong young man, did a great job, but when we got that fish up, he goes, I'm drinking a water, and then we're drinking a beer and going in. I said, okay. Sounds good. So that's what we did. And that was as I fished him 3 days this year. Every day he caught multiple tarpon, and every day he landed a mature fish. And every one of those was on those hooks.
What is the length you can take the fish out of the water and hold it up for a picture these days?
Well, first of all, are you talking about any species or tarpon?
Tarpon.
Tarpon. The tarpon must be under 40 inches before you can relieve it. If you're going to remove it from the water at all, you can't bring any fish over 40 inches over the gunnel of your boat. A great rule of thumb is, I mean, we don't like to bring them up very long, but if I was going to tell somebody you wanted to pull it up for a picture, like, all right, hold your breath and lift it up. When you can't hold your breath, keep your breath held any longer, put it back in the water, and that's it. It's done. We're going to hold it in the water till it's ready to go, and that's it. So I'd say 30 seconds at the most, but limited.
Reviving a tarpon, do you typically run it back and forth through the water? Do you make the boat move and hold it? What's your preferred method?
It depends on where we are. Right now, this time of year, a lot of the fish I'm catching, I'm not fishing around the pass right now. Now we have some of those bigger fish that we were catching are the Bokelia bars, where you do have the flow from the pass coming through, so you do get better water movement, and that's why those bigger fish are there, and that's where we can sight fish them still, even this time of year. But I'm gonna grab his lower jaw, and I'm gonna lead him around, and if the angler wants to do it, it's like you hold on to him until he fights to get away. And don't back him up. You're going to always lead him forward, just like he's going into the tide or into the current, and wait till he fights you. If it's a long fight, it may take 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. But when the fish fights to get away, he's ready to go.
That's good information. Thank you.
Welcome.
Jamie,
If I ever catch a fish.
Jamie, are you catching any on top water like JT was talking about having a hit on a gurgler? Are you using any gurglers at all?
The fish there's one place that we're targeting fish that would probably take them on top water. I find we have good luck with those in a lot of our tidal creek areas.
Mm-hmm.
when the water's moving more and in pinch points, and the fish are, we see fish blowing up and whacking small bait at the surface, but they're eating is really tiny. I believe it's small bait fish. I can't see them, but they're coming up and breaking the water and tail slapping, and they're hitting like a jack, but it's a single fish. But yes, those fish will take a topwater, a popper, or a gurgler. And again, I have better luck with those fish when I do have a moving water or a tidal creek and stuff, where they're staged up, they're waiting for something to come to them, and you throw it and you pop it away, and you bet. I've never caught a really big fish on the top water. I don't think I've ever got one. Well, I can't say that for. In October, 6 or 7 years ago, I was in the Upper Harbor and I was scouting see if the snook and redfish moved in, and there was a bunch of tarpon up there, and I didn't have anything with me except a 6-weight and a inshore spinning rod, and the fish were 30 to 60 pounds. So I threw a big spook at them just to see what they would do, and yeah, they ate it. I didn't land any of them, and most of them broke me off or just threw it. But so yeah, you can get a above 20-pound fish on a topwater, but again, that was with a spinning rod, not with a fly rod, because I thought the 6-weight was a waste of time with those size fish.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, who's going tarpon fishing tomorrow besides me?
I still have a few very basic questions, if I may. What is the better tide, in or out, on these tidal creeks? Both.
Well, here's a little hint that it doesn't necessarily apply to only tarpon. Some places, the deeper water on we'll just say it's left and right. So if the tide goes left and right, if there's deeper water or the harder push of water, and it's not always the incoming or the outcoming, it depends on the spot. If there's a deeper water on one side or the other, or it means there's more water coming in, just like, a wave. We talk about the East Coast and the West Coast. When West Coast has no surf because the water is shallower. So if there's more water on the incoming side is going to be stronger. If there's more depth on the outside, because maybe there's a big bay behind that cove and that water dumps out, it pulls stronger. So
you want it to flow?
Because I don't fish around bridges, and I don't fish big channels. It's not consistent. And most of the time people will say outgoing. In a lot of places I fish, yes, outgoing is stronger and is better. I would say for snook and tarpon, I would generally say a falling tide, but for redfish, I'd say incoming.
But I'm sorry, so the deeper water side is usually the incoming
Where there's
side?
more water going in that direction, either in or out, that's going to be the stronger tide. That's going to allow more water movement, and the fish will key on it stronger because there's going to be more food being flushed to them. Whichever direction the tide moves the fastest. I know that seems
goes fastest going from shallow to deep versus deep to shallow?
Deep to shallow will be faster.
Deep to shallow. Okay, gotcha. Venturi effect, okay. And then, is there any sort of like a temperature, a minimum or maximum temperature where the fish, or in particular tarpon, since we're talking them, are happiest? Or at what temperature are they looking for cooler water, or what temperature are they looking for?
Tarpon don't want cool water. Tarpon want water. We know we're going to start seeing tarpon in the spring when our water temps start getting into the we'll see our first ones in the 73, 2, 3, 4. But tarpon love warm water. When we get water 78 degrees and above, as long as that water stays above 75, 76, 77, 78, we're going to have tarpon until that water drops below there. So if in November, on Halloween or Thanksgiving, we've got 80-degree water, we got tarpon.
And what about the hottest water though, that they'll, it seems like I've seen where like at 88, they're not kind of coming up, but all of a sudden at 89, 90, they start coming up.
Whoa, that generally doesn't mean they come up. When they're coming up and rolling, they're rolling because of the lack of oxygen in the water. You're not seeing them. They're not coming up generally under those conditions to feed.
Well, yeah,
They're coming up
air, yeah.
Yeah, they're gulping air. A tarpon has the ability to take oxygen from the water, and it has the ability to take oxygen from above the water surface. They'll gulp. They'll go down, and as you get to see them more and more often, you'll watch them come up, break the surface, go down, and if you keep your eye on them, you'll see as he goes down, even in dark water, then you'll see a bloop, just like a scuba diver, a bubble come up. They're releasing that air. They gulp it, they take it down, they absorb some, and they release the extra. Most of the time when we talk about rolling tarpon in the early morning or flat water conditions, they are taking surface air and gulping some, taking it down, absorbing some, and releasing it. And you can see the bubbles, and that's why we tell our anglers where the bubble is his head. So you want to drop your fly right almost on that bubble and let it sink down, because he usually comes up, gulps, and then moves down a little bit deeper in the water column. So we're trying to put it literally on the bubbles.
Now, is there a temperature
ahead.
that turn off? Like I said, over 90 degrees or something, do they turn off at any sort of temperature?
No. That's why little tarpon go into these tiny little creeks to survive. That water is scalding hot because there's no predators in there. But little tarpon,
They like this.
they have to eat. Everybody has to eat. And a little tarpon is just a big bait fish. So he goes in there, and that's how they survive. I mean, when a big female can lay, up to 1 million eggs. The scientists tell us that maybe 1% make it. Well, 1% of 1 million is still a pretty good number to come from one mommy in one season. But the only way they make it is they have to get all the way back into these little teeny tiny creeks where there's no predators and there's very little oxygen and the waters are really hot. And that's how they survive. And then as they eat, and they'll eat a frog, a bug, a lizard, a minnow, anything they can eat, they'll eat, because they know the only way I get to be a big tarpon is by eating. So I eat every single thing I can get my hands on. And that's why those little tarpon are suckers for poppers and gurglers and everything else, because I got to eat. If I don't eat, I don't get bigger.
Hey, Jamie.
Yes, sir.
So when I was on one of your flats a couple days back, I noticed the water seemed a lot cooler than it is here. Is there a big difference between Charlotte Harbor and Sarasota Harbor in terms of temperature?
I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I would say if you were closer to a pass or a larger flow of Gulf water, obviously the harbor waters are going to be warmer than the Gulf waters because less movement. So that would be the only reason I would think that the water would be, you're not that far north. It's not like we didn't change that much geographically where, it's much colder in Sarasota than it is in Port Charlotte now.
It seemed hotter this year, like we really got hot this summer.
Yeah,
and when we went down there the other day, it seemed a much nicer temperature for fishing versus putting your hand. Like I've caught some snook this summer they're just, and trout that are hot. They just feel hot to the touch. They're just really super hot.
And it may also have been on the because of the color of the bottom you were fishing in. If it was a dark bottom, it's obviously going to be warmer. It's just like a black car and a white car. So you're sand versus mud. If you're over a lighter bottom, it was probably going to be a little bit cooler than if you were in. Right now, a lot of our water down here, unless you were on direct sand, it's going to be warm. Just like up there, if you were over a mud bottom. I don't fish Sarasota Bay a lot, but I think you guys have maybe more sand than we do, but or open or broken grass areas where we have more thicker grass here. But again, I don't know that for sure.
Jamie, not to change the subject, but are you starting to see some of the big redfish coming in at all?
I'll be honest, I've only been tarpon fishing.
Okay.
But I did have a gentleman today say, hey, I was talking to another guy and he was over by Cape Hayes Cape Hayes Bar, and he goes, they were spin fishing or whatever. And he goes, there's a lot of redfish over there. And then the guy said, have you seen any? I'm like, no, because I'm not looking for redfish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm still mostly just tarpon fishing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've scared a few big ones here and there, but
They didn't cooperate though, huh?
not the big ones.
Yeah.
And,
Bob, are you still awake?
I'm still awake.
You look like you're watching a movie or something.
I am watching a movie.
You're resting tomorrow morning?
I fish in the Manatee River, and we found, a fair number of tarpon this year, but the depth of the water was always, 7, 8, 9 feet deep or more. We've caught a couple, mostly on like clouser minnows or something like that. But do you have any other suggestions how to get these guys to bite?
Well, I will say, those fish in that, that's a little bit darker water, darker bottom. I would tell you if you're not getting them, what you're doing, one, I would say go extremely gaudy bright flies, and maybe even go with a sink tip or go a little bit deeper. It's hard. You can't see those fish. I mean, you might see them roll, but you don't know where they are in the water column. When you get 7, 8 feet of water, your fly has to be in a range that they can see it, and that may only be 3 feet. Well, if they got 3 feet above them and 3 feet below them and 3 feet in front of them, your odds go down with those fish. Those are the harder fish to catch. Now, I know a lot of guys fish them early in the morning because they said they seem to stay higher in the water column. They're rolling more. They're more relaxed, and that might be an advantage. I know the guys that fish a lot up in the Peace River, which is probably similar to that are near us. They say they go early, and those fish shut down early. But that's also because it's deeper and darker, like what you're dealing with. So
Yeah.
the early approach is another way to go, but I would try. Cannon's fly might be a great one for that. It's got some weight to it. It'll cover a little bit more of the water column, but you can even use a little. They have some glow in the dark fabrics. You can put a little highlights of that in there. That'll present itself a little bit. They have to see it.
Yeah, the last one I caught was on a chartreuse clouser. So
yeah, something.
Maybe that's the answer.
Just think, Christmas tree. Put some bright crap on there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hot pink or whatever you want. Something bright.
I think he just named the fly, the cannon.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, while we're at it, telling fishing stories, I've been noticing Mike Perez catching very large trout. Where are you, Michael?
Right here.
What state?
I'm in Indiana right now.
Oh.
We have no trout here.
Where are you showing us pictures.
I was in Montana.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hard to get back home, huh?
Pardon me?
Hard to leave there and head on home.
Absolutely. 6,000 miles I put on my my truck in a month.
Rick said you were out there about a week or so before the trip, and you stayed out there another couple of weeks after his trip, huh?
Well, we went out in June for a couple weeks out there, and then came back through Arkansas, and then I went back the end of July. We were supposed to go to British Columbia, but we couldn't go there, so scrambled around and filled that week. In fact, I went to Missoula, took 35 more fly lines to Fly Vines in Missoula. Went to their place, and it's actually on the third floor in an old office building in Missoula. Little small, probably room no bigger than my office here. And went in there and met a very nice young lady who was absolutely surrounded by boxes of fly lines and all the stuff they make. And I brought us home. I've got a few more things for us.
All right.
And as soon as we can, we start having meetings where we're actually all there, I will, I gave you a bunch,
Right.
before I left, and I've got, so I still need anybody that's got old fly lines, save them, don't throw them away. Give them to me. I will get them recycled. And if you're ever in the Missoula area, I fished a new river to me called the Bitterroot. I knew about the Bitterroot, never fished it.
Almost did one.
Awesome river. And I'm going back there for sure.
I got a question for Ken or some of the board members. So I really like this format. Does it make any sense to invite anglers from out of our club to this or not?
Oh.
Because Jamie has guys, and I have friends that would have loved seeing that Tarpon presentation.
I guess just like in any old meeting, we have guests.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And it may end up getting us a member or two. Not a bad thing.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
All right, somebody wake Al up because I gotta go.
But I still have a couple of questions for Jamie, if you don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Call you at home. Jamie, you want me to just call you at home? I have a couple more questions.
No.
You live right around the corner, you ding dong.
That's what I'm over.
I'm going to get ready to go to bed. I got to get up in the morning. But if you want to ask a couple more questions, do it quick.
Yeah, two more very stupid basic questions. So what are the best waters to look for? Is it just, I guess, more the creeks? You keep mentioning the tidal creeks, so versus big open water, more the tidal creeks is better for the season?
Oh, tidal creeks with the flow they have a good depth and flow will almost always have little tarpon. But a lot of the fish that I'm fishing right now are kind of it's places that we find. It's not, there's no, one of my top spots this time of year that I've been fishing for the last 4 or 5 years are right out in the middle of nothing, right? People blow by this all the time. And no, I'm not telling you where it is.
But I'm just wondering, like, what does one look for besides just rolling tarpon? What is, what kind of, just kind of when you anywhere, but what do you?
You know what, I'll tell you what, if I didn't know the area real well, just because there's more locations down there, I would tell you to go to Pine Island Sound and start looking anywhere from Rocky Creek north. And anywhere where because there's nice grass there, and you can really see the flow of water, and the water really pushes through there north of Rocky Channel. And when you find that one, and it really, it lays the grass down. And that's where, in that video, JT was right in that same area. And there's all late summer, there's tarpon in that area. And the flatter it is, the more they're going to show. Those tarpon are there year round, and this time of year they're going to be strong down there. But yeah, there's a lot of water pushes through there. That grass is laid down flat like you're in a river.
So anywhere you see them lay down flat, lay down grass, that's
Strong moving water. That's a clam lease on the east side of Sandfly. The reason that clam lease is there is because that water pushes through there. There's still adult fish in there right now. That water pushes through there hard.
Yeah, like
still
that.
Mature. There's 100-pound fish in there right now.
Never seen them in March.
Because of the flow of water. March is too cold. They're not there yet.
No, we saw the first couple of them late March.
Yeah, I remember you guys telling me that,
like dolphin size.
I said one jumped over and nearly something in
That
their
was
britches.
our boat.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, okay, one last stupid question that I've just been, as a trout fisherman, I've been having a lot of serious problems with my trout setting, sneaking in. What is the best way to strip? When you get to the end of your strip and you're here, what is the best way to keep on stripping versus move your tip? Any hints?
Well, a lot of times people, when they feel tension, when they come from the freshwater world, they want to raise their tip, raise the rod. Okay, you're right-handed, you're stripping with your left hand. A neat little tip that I've told people, and it's worked, is if you relax your right hand and let the rod float in it, don't grip the rod. You can't raise that rod until you grip the rod. So if you let that, I'll literally use my back 2 fingers to support the cork and strip, because you cannot lift with just that. You have to grip. So it lets that rod hand relax, and you pull and strip through it that way. And that's something that will help. The problem is you have muscle memory built in. And you want to, when you feel tension, lift. But you can't lift until you grip. So if you don't have a grip, you can't lift. And that'll at least slow it down. It'll help a little.
No, that's a great tip. Thank you.
The rest is just staying relaxed and doing it more and more.
Sure. Sure. No, thank you very much. That's a great tip.
Yeah, Jamie, thank you very much. How can these guys get a hold of you to book a trip?
Well, I think most of them already know, but you can go to my website, which is and it's on the end of my video. It's there, that jamiesoutfishing.com, and you guys have my cards on your website, so they all.
It's on a newsletter.
Our newsletter.
Well, everybody go out and book a trip.
There we go.
We want to thank you again, Jamie, for coming out tonight and sharing with that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Jim,
you.
Ethan, Jamie, appreciate it.
You're welcome, and just remember,
Fishing is important turn.
What he said.
that's it.
Everybody have a good evening. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
We'll do it again.
Bye.
Right.